Harrison White reporting there. Well, it's been 3 years since Victoria's Royal Commission into Family Violence, but dozens of recommendations are yet to be implemented. As Tyson Whelan reports, domestic violence advocates say the time for change is now.
Rakaya O'Donnell would have turned 28 last month.
Rakaya was a very bright, bubbly and enthusiastic person. Sometimes people would say a bit too much.
But in 2013, her life was tragically cut short at the hands of her abusive partner, Nelson Lai.
He apparently tipped all the bullets out of the gun, closed the barrel, started waving the gun around. The gun went off. He didn't think there was any bullets in there, but there was, and the bullet went straight through her temple, apparently instantly killing her on the spot.
Rakaya's long-term abuse was one of many instances across Victoria which led to the 2015 Royal Commission into Family Violence. The Commission recommended changes to sentencing, overhauling the intervention regime and altering the court process for victims. But Victoria's Women's Legal Service, among other organisations, say that the 107 unlegislated recommendations and the current administration of services is simply not meeting the mark.
For one, I'm not satisfied that the governance and evaluation processes in relation to the implementation of the Royal Commission findings are adequate.
Jessie O'Donnell believes the government needs to completely rethink the justice system that so tragically let his sister down.
You know, when you're looking at the definition between murder and manslaughter, you have to be found guilty of the intent to kill. That is the difference. But if you're throwing at the jury that you didn't know what you were doing because you're on drugs, that throws doubt as to your intentions at the time.
Over $2 billion has been allocated by the state government since the Royal Commission, yet experts say the time has come for a long-term vision to stop family violence.
They believe that it's a done deal because they've put so much money in that the problem's just going to be sorted, and I'm afraid that's not necessarily what's going to happen unless, they really keep their eyes on the ball and they really keep working together to make sure that, the complexity of the issues are understood and acted on.
There's definitely a lot more that could be done, and I think at this stage it's just all words, unfortunately.
At the Supreme Court in Melbourne, Tyson Whelan, Newsline.
And we'll be right back after this break with your finance news.
Newsline.
And now we have Tyson Whelan here with the international news.
Well, thanks, guys. Good afternoon. Papua New Guinea's parliament has elected James Marape as the country's new Prime Minister. Today's vote was prompted by the former Prime Minister Peter O'Neill resigning yesterday after losing majority support of his colleagues. Marape's election draws to a close a long period of political instability in the Pacific nation. Israel will return to the polls in September, just 5 months since the country had a general election. For the first time in Israeli history, no coalition was able to be formed, which forced Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to support a new vote. Netanyahu's Likud party secured exactly 50% of the seats in the Israeli Knesset, but when negotiations broke down, it became clear that the only way to break the deadlock would be to have another election. Police in Bangladesh have charged 16 people with murder in relation to the suspected killing of a 19-year-old student, Nusrat Rafi. The woman filed a sexual assault complaint against her school principal earlier this year. When she refused to withdraw the complaint, it's alleged the school's headmaster organised for her to be doused in kerosene and burnt alive. Special Counsel Robert Mueller has spoken publicly for the first time since his appointment as prosecutor in the Russian election interference investigation. While Mueller mostly repeated the language of his 448-page report, he strikingly said, quote, "If we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so." Democratic presidential hopefuls Senator Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand joined Mayor Pete Buttigieg in calling for the president's impeachment following the surprise press conference. And that's your international news headlines. I'll be joining Alexandra and Will on the panel later to talk more about the Mueller report. But until then, it's back to you.
And we're looking forward to that, Tyson. Now a report from our international affairs reporter, Rob Harrison, on punk rock in Las Vegas.